I remember how you showed me the price of my redemption. Lord, how could I question when you proved that you died for me? You walked me through fires and pulled me from flame. If you're in this with me, I won't be afraid. When the smoke billows higher, whoa, and higher, and it feels like I can barely breathe. I walk through these fires, 'cause you're walking with me. I walk through these fires, 'cause you're walking with me. God, I'm on my knees again. God, I'm begging, please again. I need you. Oh, I need you. Walking down these desert roads, the water for my thirsty soul. I need you. Oh, I need you. Your forgiveness is like sweet, sweet honey on my lips. It's like the sound of a symphony to my ears. It's like holy water on my skin.
Dead man walking, slave to sin. I want to know about being born again. I need you. Oh God, I need you. So take me to the riverside. Take me under bad tides. I need you. Oh God, I need you. Oh,
Your forgiveness is like sweet, sweet honey on my lips. It's like the sound of a symphony to my ears. It's like holy water on my skin.
I don't wanna abuse your grace. God, I need it every day. It's the only thing that ever really makes me wanna change. I don't wanna abuse your grace. God, I need it every day. It's the only thing that ever really makes me wanna change.
Your forgiveness is like sweet, sweet honey on my lips. And like the sound of a symphony to my ears. It's like holy water. Your forgiveness is like sweet, sweet honey on my lips. It's like the sound of a symphony to my ears. It's like holy water on my skin. Yeah, it's like holy water on my skin.
Again, that's not what I care about. What I care about is the day after election. Because there's going to be a lot of people who the next day are going to be really scared. They're thinking, our political party just lost, and this whole country is going to go to hell. Whether or not that's true, that doesn't matter. The fear is real. The emotions are real. And then you've got some Christians who are going to be like, yeah, suck it. And that's not good either. Here would be my heart for the church and for all Christians. And it doesn't mean that I will get what I want. It doesn't mean that I even am able to fully walk this out, but this is where I'm headed. The day after, to have such deep compassion for anyone who lost or won. To say, God, you're in control. We love you. And wouldn't it be amazing if we as a church could lean and walk into people's fear and say, there's a greater kingdom and there's something far more important. And how do we walk that out, live that out? And let's walk into this very tender, holy moment of where people really are going to be scared and say, this is where the kingdom of God should really be growing and thriving. And to me, that's the greater goal. And that also then means, I have to learn to manage my reactions. I've got to do a deep work inside of me to go, why are different emotions being pulled out of me, and how do I start to lean into that? So how did you guys do in the last week with your anger? Anyone? Anyone? No one's willing to say. Did you find yourself reacting this last week the way that you typically have reacted when you've had the emotions rise? Did you find yourself pausing more? Anyone? Taking a deep breath? Awesome. Where you're at least trying to make the effort to learn to manage the emotions that are coming and rising within you in maybe a more God-honoring way. Maybe you've figured out a little bit better to discern the things that are setting you off. To go, oh, I'm seeing a pattern. The pattern's always been there, but maybe I just never took the time to look at it. I've heard that there are basically two things that set people off. The first is stupid inanimate objects, like when you go to the ATM machine and you put your card in, it either takes your card or it doesn't give you what it is that you're wanting to get out of it, and you're just, it's not giving you, or your laptop crashes. There is no deeper anger in my life than when I have a hard drive that fails, and it's only happened a few times in my life, and those have been the biggest spikes of my anger that I've ever had. Or when the box reads some assembly required, and I know it's a lie. Or that shower that goes cold when someone comes in and flushes the toilet and scalds you. Or when they turn on the washing machine. And the second category is people, that person who flushed the toilet when you were in the shower. And then we typically express our anger towards inanimate objects that are so stupid, or stupid people. That ticks me off. They make me so mad. And the deal is, inanimate objects and people are what are making us mad. They're not the root cause of what it is that we're angry at. The truth is that there were things that were happening far earlier that were going on before that inanimate object or that person, which is in between my response and and it's my interpretation of that event that is happening. My perception of it, my thought process is what is happening. How I interpret my thoughts is what is going to lead me to anger. So 9:30 at night, I'm in my living room. Finally, all the kids are down in bed. They've been down for at least 30 minutes, hopefully an hour. I've got a bowl of ice cream on my lap, and I'm so happy. And then I hear a little pitter-patter. My daughter, she gets out of the bed. She's cautiously sneaking down the hallway, down towards the living room. But on this one night, I'm so calm. I'm so relaxed. And I'm so good with this. And you just start thinking this series of thoughts that start coming to your mind. And you're just thinking, as she's coming out of the shadows, look at my precious daughter. My child. I I love this girl. And wow, I've probably only got a few more years to really enjoy her, to really just soak this relationship in, because pretty soon I'm going to be walking her down the aisle, and I'm going to be giving her away, and I'm going to be sobbing my eyes out. But look how courageous she is. She's coming out into the dark of the living room. She's got this bold, adventurous spirit and this risk-takingness, and she's exploring the world of the night. She is just like her dad. And this pride just swells up on me. But on another night, same child, she starts down the hallway. But this day had been a really hard day for me. And I was just struggling. There had been a lot of stress. I had dealt with a lot of criticism, and it just kind of knocked me off my rhythm that day. And maybe the boss was on your case, but in that time, the sweet girl who's coming down the hallway in the shadows, you have this different set of thinking, thoughts, a process where finally I had a little peace and quiet. This child from hell, she can't stay in bed. And I've told her 100 times, just stay there, you will fall asleep. You are the most rebellious child I've ever had. You are just like your mother. And sometimes that's just the way it goes. The situation can be absolutely identical, but how I interpret the situation is either going to lead me toward anger or it's going to lead me away from anger. And we've all had those moments where we've had the broken tennis racket, or we've kicked a car, or you've yelled at a kid, or you got the person who lost your luggage at the airport, and you just, The thing is, it's not the object, it's not the person. The problem is me. I make me so mad. Anyone else? Say that with me. I make me so mad, because that is the truth right there. So when you start to feel yourself getting heated up and angry, instead of assigning blame to the nearest stupid object or the other person, you just say, I make me so mad. The Bible says that we have to own our anger. And we talked last week, and we talked about we are to reflect before we react. And remember the results. Play the movie all the way out to the end so that we can see where this is going, because then we need to kind of restrain our remarks, because if we don't, then this will be true of us. Proverbs 11:29, the fool who provokes his family to anger and resentment will finally have nothing worthwhile left. And I know that some of us, we saw that verse up maybe last week for the first time, or maybe you're coming today for the first time in a long time, and you're like, whoa, okay, I wish I had seen that verse a long time ago. Because the truth is, you live with more than a few regrets about the decisions you've made and how you've allowed anger to shape and destroy things or destroy relationships in your life. And maybe you've burned through a relationship. And each one of us, we've blown up at some point because we didn't learn how to manage our anger. And if we don't start to learn to apply some of the stuff that we're talking about in the next relationship, it's not going to survive either, because I'm just going to do the same pattern, because I'm doing the same damage, because I still have not figured out how to stop me, because I make me so angry. I need to figure out a way to kind of change that direction. Because some of us, we have alienated our kids along the way. And when they look at you, they get afraid, and they don't have the power to fight back or to yell back. All they can do is take the abuse, and it's wounding their souls, and it's going to cost you a relationship one day with them. And some of you, no doubt, have embarrassed yourselves on the job, maybe around your friends. Maybe you've mismanaged your anger, and now people, they don't want to be around you because you are this walking thunderstorm, and they don't know what it is that's going to set you off, or when it's going to happen, or who is going to be the victim. And some of you might be in a marriage that has grown cold, where there's not a lot of physical or sexual intimacy because, well, and it could even be for years now. And all forms of affection have pretty much just left. They're dead. And the real culprit is unresolved anger, which is why I thought this is such a big, heavy, huge, important topic to bring up that we needed to lean into it more and make it at least 2 weeks. Because the Bible says that this is absolutely crucial for us to learn to manage our anger and the emotions that are coursing through us, and it's never too late to allow God to change us. So we may not be able to undo all of the damage that we've done and that we're responsible for, but we can continue to become someone new as we listen to the voice of a loving God and we start to passionately move into that direction and fall more in love with God. God's allowed to do more inside of us and can start to change us into the best version of ourselves, a new kind of person, where we start to have things like kindness and gentleness and patience and self-control, that those are the things that are starting to grow inside of us instead of the rage. And I just also wanted to say, I don't know if anyone has even looked at it, but this anger, this is where I'm getting some of the information, this anger workbook. My goodness, I have been reading it more this week, and I'm getting near the very end of it. And I was like, maybe I can squeeze a third sermon in. But I was like, better yet, you guys, this is a great resource. I didn't know I had so much anger in me. I've got a lot. And this is helping. It's helping me to process. So I just wanted to encourage you that if you're looking for a book, it's a fantastic one. Also, if you have not picked up as like a family or a couple or an individual, the book Falling Upward. By the way, this is such a good book. It's my gift to you. I've got several copies on the back table. Learning how to deal with as we make mistakes and as we get hurt and as we fall, because we all fall and we make mistakes. Learning how to fall better. It's not that we stop falling and become perfect. It's that I can choose, God, do I allow you to grow me and heal me and transform me in the process of my falling? So if I'm going to fall, if I'm going to screw up, if I'm going to sin, God, I'm going to fall in a direction that always leads me closer to you. So take a copy of that. I hope it becomes a gift that you do enjoy. Just imagine for a moment what your life would be like if you and I began to master and control the anger that's inside of us. To be able to sit through the demands of your day, whether it's deadlines or you're having to drive through traffic or just going through a drive-through line. But you could have this sense of calm and peacefulness that just kind of rests on you, where you're thinking, I am connecting to you, God, throughout the entire day, and I'm able to hear your voice. And as I'm hearing your voice and you're speaking to me, I feel like you're filling me, and the things that I usually react to, maybe I'm not going to react to as much or even at all, because God, I'm hearing your heartbeat and your love for me, and you're giving me patience with people and inanimate objects, and you're doing it through my entire day. Imagine looking at people not as unwanted interruptions in your day, but you start to welcome people as they're interrupting and maybe things that were unexpected as an opportunity that God's like, no, this is going to be something I'm going to use through your day to shape you and to connect to me through. And then maybe never having to withdraw on these days into pouting or sulking, or imagine that you could stop dropping those bombs of sarcasm, using words that just wound and cut other people. Imagine what it'd be like to kind of cut off that constant flow of profanity that is just coming out of your mouth. Imagine never having to look at the eyes of that child again as they're scared of you and have fear of what it is, or even resentment. Imagine that you could actually become this oasis of love and safety and warmth, where people are wanting more and more to be around you because of you're not bringing this rage-filled passion into the world, but you're actually bringing more and more of the peace and the love and the joy that God is working in you. And others are like, I want more of that. I want to be around that person. Because that is what God is wanting to see happen. And the thing is God can pull it off. And I know that because he's doing it more and more in me. And it can happen in every one of us if we continue to cooperate with him. And in case you're thinking, I know who should hear this. Oh, that person, I need to make sure they hear the podcast. I need to get them on YouTube tonight. I know exactly who should be hearing this sermon. I got to tell you, it's you. It's not them. God brought you here to hear this and me to work through this. This is for me first and foremost. Every single one of us needs to hear this stuff and own this stuff and apply this stuff and surrender all of it to God. James 1:20, for the anger of man does not produce the righteousness of God. It is not God's best version of us. I heard of a preschool teacher who was on a field trip. They're taking the class. They're headed and as they're driving on this field trip, they saw this fire truck. It went by, and it had a Dalmatian dog sitting in the front seat with next to the driver. And the teacher thought, oh, hey, this is a great opportunity. Kids, what do you think the Dalmatian is for? And this first one said, well, they use that dog for crowd control. And then another kid's like, no, that's not it. He's just for good luck. And this third kid's like, no, that's how they find the fire hydrants. Right. But sometimes you're the dog, and sometimes you're that fire hydrant. I remember as a 13-year-old kid, I was a fire hydrant. Almost every single day when I was 13, my freshman year of high school, playing volleyball, my coach was just a mean man. And he would come to practice and just yell. And he was just such a difficult person. And I absolutely loved the sport, but he was such a difficult person to be around. I hated the practice. I didn't have much confidence in myself. I didn't have much joy in life. And what little I had, it felt like he sucked the rest of it right out of me. He would criticize me and belittle me, and he would make fun of us, but he'd also make fun of the other teams and the opposing players when we would play games. And he had this drinking problem. He was not a lot of fun to be around. He was just a difficult man in my life. And since then, I've had other difficult people that I've had to be around, whether it's difficult bosses or teachers, and I've dealt with a lot of angry, disgruntled, difficult, opinionated church members through the years. And it's just not easy, as you guys know, to have difficult people in your life. It discourages you, it damages your self-esteem, makes you just want to quit, it makes you want to avoid all of those difficult people and do whatever it takes to just kind of put a wall up to try and buffer so that your emotions don't get damaged when you're around them, because you don't want to get burned when they are on fire. But the truth is, we're always going to have those kinds of people that are in our life. That's just going to happen. And sometimes we're the dog, and sometimes we're the fire hydrant. Most of the times, that difficult person is someone you can't ignore. They're usually someone that you see on a regular basis, maybe even for some of you on a daily basis. That it could be a coworker, it could be a boss, it could be a spouse or a child, it could be a parent or a friend or relative. And I don't have to tell you how hard it is or even convince you to know how difficult it is to rub shoulders with those people every day. And maybe we could spend a lot more time unpacking maybe how to respond in a God-honoring way when we are at the receiving end of critical comments and angry outbursts and hurtful comments and more. But I'm just going to give us a few things today that I've been learning and I've been trying to lean into as God and I have been kind of working through some of this just in my life. And the first thing is this: seek to understand the other person. Instead of harboring resentment and bitterness and flying back, you seek to understand the other person better. It's kind of like last week. It's a spin on what we did last week. Because last week was reflect before you react. But this time, reflect not only on about what is going on inside of you before you jump to anger, but this one pushes a little bit more, what might be going on inside of them that is making them that way. This is like advanced course now. James 3:17, but the wisdom from above is first of all pure. It is also peace-loving, gentle at times, and willing to yield to others. It is full of mercy and the fruit of good deeds. It shows no favoritism. It is always sincere, but those who are peacemakers will plant seeds of peace and reap a harvest of righteousness. But do you see here, this is what I love, do you see where the peace comes from? It comes from the wisdom that is from above, and it comes from understanding. You know how we said that anger is, we've been saying this, the second emotion. It's not our primary emotion, but what it does is it points us to something that is deeper that is going on inside of us. Because those rage-filled people, those difficult people that are around, those people that feel like they're on fire, they are not born that way. They weren't full of rage when they came out of the womb. They're full of rage because something has happened. There's some damage that has happened inside of them. They're full of some kind of suffering, or there's a deep issue, scar tissue that has never been dealt with. And if you look close enough at that difficult person, you will find a wound, and you'll see the scar. A lack of love or a lack of acceptance in their lives. You might find insecurity, anxiety, fear. And I'm not saying that's ever going to excuse or justify their behavior, but it does help you have some kind of insight into them. And some of you may have some angry, rage-filled parents, and they just never really expressed much affection. And maybe they avoid emotion or were very hypercritical of you. Maybe they're extremely strict and demanding and controlling, and it just frustrates you, just to the no ends. But I bet you, if you were to look closely at your parents, and parents are hard ones to do, so this is really a challenge for some of you. For me, to look at my parents not as my parents. Well, they're my parents, but to look at them as people that they've got deep wounds and damage to. And maybe I could even change and start to have some empathy and some understanding where I start to gain some idea and insight to what shaped them the way that they are. Maybe it's your boss who is so out of line and so critical and difficult to work with. And maybe it's this internal fear that they have of failure, and maybe he's very insecure. Maybe he has a dad who he's never able to please, and now he lives driven by this unhealthy sense of always trying to prove his worth. Again, that does not excuse how he treats you or how he treats other employees, but it does help you to better understand him. And maybe that wife who is always nagging you all the time. Maybe she is exhausted trying to balance the seemingly never-ending days of changing diapers or chauffeuring kids, going to every sporting event there is, balancing the budget, trying to work herself, just trying to figure out how to manage her life, and she may never feel like she's ever doing it or able to have time to get replenished. And out of this inner exhaustion, and again, it doesn't justify the outburst that maybe your spouse has, but it may help give you some insight and understanding, and maybe even help you find a way to bring relief to the inner problems. Because when we start to seek to understand what lies beneath someone else's anger, it's amazing how the Holy Spirit starts to give you a sense of compassion for that person. And you're like, dang, compassion. That wasn't what I was wanting. I wanted to be able to justify my anger, but as I sit and I hear what you're saying, God, something is changing in my heart. And you stop seeing them as the enemy, but rather someone who's created in the image of God, someone who is loved by God, and someone, instead of thinking about how I can retaliate and get them back, make them pay for what they did to me, I start to think, oh, how do I help you? How can I serve you? How can I proactively pursue peace with them? Because if you're going to be serious, and if I'm going to continue to be serious to pursue peace with that difficult person, one of the ways that I know that God's going to lead you, because His words lead us there, is to communicate with them. Because understanding alone, that never diffuses the situation by itself. There's got to be more than just coming to a place of compassion and understanding. Because somewhere along the line, there has to be some truth telling, and that's what needs to happen. I know for some of us, when we start talking about having a hard conversation, you're just like, no, give me a bag to throw up in. I do not want that. I don't want to have confrontation. I don't want to have to talk with them. I don't want to bring this stuff up. I don't know that I have the skills or ability to say things. I freeze. I panic. I just want to throw up. My stomach is in knots. I don't know how to do this. And I'm starting to sweat just thinking about this. And it does. I got to be honest, it's going to take a lot of courage. And sometimes you have to go kind of the way that Esther in the Bible did it in the Old Testament, where she just took a deep breath and said, okay, if I die, I die. But I have to give it a shot. And right now, some of you are saying, but you don't know my boss. They're really unreasonable. You don't know my husband. It's like talking to a brick wall. You don't know my wife. The moment I hit the front door, she just cranks up the volume and I can't even get a word in. You don't know my dad. No matter what I do, it's never going to be enough. I can't please him, and you don't know the kind of crap I've taken from them my whole life. I just want to say, I know it's hard. I know it is so hard. But I also know it's worth a shot, because you can't keep swinging between the two extremes of deny or where I just sit and dwell on it. But you have to find a way to courageously come to the middle, and we start to say, no, I've got to deal with it. If I ever want anything to change, it starts with me, and I've got to be a part of changing this. Jesus told us emphatically in Matthew chapter 18:15, if another believer sins against you, go privately and point out the offense. If the other person listens and confesses it, you have won that person back. He says, go, talk to them. Some of you have let that problem person in your life steal you of joy and ruin every single one of your holidays. And they've ruined the parade just with this, and they've ravaged your self-esteem for years and years and years. And maybe it's time for you to find a way to summon courage and say, God, help me. I'm going to talk to that person, and I'm going to tell them how I feel. And if it blows up in my face, it blows up in my face. But I've got to start taking that risk, because I can't keep living being pushed down and destroyed and oppressed. And sometimes it's not always going to be possible. And honestly, in many cases, it's not even going to be beneficial. But for the most part, we have to stop ignoring the problem and do what Jesus told us to do, which is go talk to that person. And when you go, let me just give you some advice. Make sure you watch your tone. It's amazing how you say something will direct a whole conversation and how it will be received. And if you're not careful about the tone of your voice, you can actually make it worse. As long as I talk in a gentle tone, then I can say just about anything to my dog, Piper. I have a dog, Piper, beautiful dog, and I can go up to her and just say, oh, Piper, you're the ugliest and most awful dog I've ever seen. Yes, you are. Yes, you are ugly. And she's not really ugly. But I could say that. You're so dumb, Piper. You're just such a dumb little dog, aren't you? And she'll just sit there and wag her tail and just, and she's awesome. Or I could go up to her and say, Piper, you are the best dog a man could ever have. You are such a good dog. You are good at protecting our house and our loving family. Thank you. And she'll just cower, tug her tail, and then fall on the ground like she's dead. Because of my tone. This is what it says in Proverbs 15. A gentle answer deflects anger, but harsh words make tempers flare. A gentle tone in your voice will disarm some of the most volatile conversations that we have to walk into. And when you go in with gentleness and with humility, you always lead with I statements. I instead of an accusatory statement. You don't say, I think you're a jerk. Then they might be a jerk, and you're out of control, and you're on fire, and your temper is going to burn you, but you lead with I statements, and you own it, maybe saying things like, I'm certainly not perfect, and I have a long way to go with how I handle my own anger, and I've been trying to get to the cause of why I get so hurt or frustrated or mad. But the truth is, I love you, and I look forward to you being home. And when you come and refuse to talk with me, I feel like I don't matter. And I feel like I'm not valued. And honestly, I feel like I'm in the way. Zero in on what you really feel, which is not the anger, but you go to the primary emotions. instead of focusing on the worthless scum that they are. And maybe your boss has some unrealistic expectations and they're just really difficult to work with. And you say something like this. I just want to talk to you for a second. I just want to say I really love working here and I love being a part of this company and being on this team here. And I really respect the leadership of this organization. It's really great. And I'm trying my best to work hard. And I'm just wondering, is there anything I can do to enhance the productivity and the morale of the team? Because honestly, I feel like I've been feeling a little intimidated lately by you. In fact, I've been searching my heart and my motives, and I don't think I'm overreacting here, but it seems like you're mad at me all the time, and it's starting to affect me. Is there anything I can help you to do with that? Will you just kind of come with this humility and a gentle tone? Sometimes I write things out. If I think, and this is here's your little pro tip for the day. I write things down, not just in my journal, but not just because I'm journaling. Sometimes I write out conversations, how I want to say them. Sometimes just writing them down helps me, and then I'll remember it. But sometimes I write a conversation down, how I need to say it, and I'll just walk up to the person and say, this is so important for me to have and to say the right way, that I'm going to read you something that I wrote because I wanted to say it the right way, because words matter. And I want to give it to you. And then I'll just read a paragraph. And I've never had anyone ever get mad at me for that. In fact, usually it shows honor. I've been really thinking about this because it's so important that I really want to say this right. And I want to do it well because you're so important. And this relationship, trying to preserve it, is so important. Where you just come in with a gentleness and a humility. And you still speak the truth, and you don't use those accusatory statements, but you just own your feelings when you speak the truth, and you speak in love, because truth without love is brutal. And the flip side, love without truth, see, that's not really love then either, if you give love, but you're not bringing the truth. Ephesians 4:25 says, stop telling lies. Let us tell our neighbors the truth, for we are all parts of the same body. And don't sin by letting anger control you. And don't let the sun go down on you while you're still angry, for anger gives a foothold to the devil. I don't know if you noticed, but Paul connects speaking truthfully with dealing with your anger here. I like that. Because if you want to walk and work through your anger, you can't pretend that you haven't been hurt or frustrated or demeaned. So watch the way that you approach someone, but tell the truth. Because I think some of us were afraid to do that. We would much rather sweep things under the rug because it is so, I would rather do that. I've spent most of my life doing that. It's easier than being very courageous and confrontational in love. It's easier to just pretend that everything is okay when it's not, and to pretend there's no problems in the relationship. I'll just deal with it. I'll change. I'll be the one. I'll just avoid it. I'll avoid the conflict. I'll own it and do it all myself. But underneath that surface, pain and damage starts to grow. Well, I'll just keep sucking it up. I can do it until you can't, because you're creating a dysfunction. And that dysfunction will continue to grow. And this happens in a ton of families. A lot of people, especially if they struggle with substance abuse, in the family, they'll go out for dinner, the dad's drinking too much on the way home, he's starting to weave all over the road, and the wife starts to yell at him, and the kids are screaming, and so they pull over, dad starts, swearing back at them, and finally, just a few minutes from home, everybody's going crazy, he slams on the brakes, he finally will pull over, he gets out of the car, slams the door, wife screams, he screams at the wife, and okay, Miss Perfect, you finally drive, you can take us the rest of the way home, and he lets the wife finally drive the last few blocks. They all get home, and then they do what many dysfunctional families do. Dad goes to bed, mom goes in the kitchen, kids go in the living room, and they turn on the TV, and everyone acts like nothing has just happened, that this is the way and the pattern that it has always been. And the next morning, everyone gets up, nothing is ever said, nothing has ever been dealt with, and life goes on. Because nobody tells the truth. Everybody's hurt. The whole family's swinging between the two extremes of either deny what is really happening or they dwell. And what we need to do is be able to have the courage to speak the truth and actually deal with it. And some of us really do need to go to our alcoholic parents and say, I love you, but you can't drive when my kid's in the vehicle. That's never going to happen again. And some of us need to have a conversation that we've been putting off to a roommate or someone like, that stuff that you're doing in my house, our house, or to a kid, it's unacceptable. In fact, it's illegal because this is my house too. And some of us need to talk to a spouse or a boss or a parent because we can't pretend that there aren't issues. And like Esther, we have to be able to say, if it blows up in my face, it's going to blow up in my face, but I have to start taking a risk because it's worth it, at least to try and make things better. And Jesus, he even went a step further. He told us that not only should we seek to understand and find better ways to communicate with difficult people in our lives, he also told us we should ambush them with love. This is what it says in Luke chapter 6. It says, but to you who are willing to listen, I say, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who hurt you. If someone slaps you on the cheek, offer the other cheek also. If someone demands your coat, offer your shirt also. Give to anyone who asks, and when things are taken away from you, don't try to get them back. Do to others as you would like them to do to you. Certainly, Jesus is not, just so you know, he is not advocating that we become a doormat or a punching bag here. That is not what this is about. But he did say, one of the ways that you'll know your heart is right is if you can go the extra mile. Try killing them with kindness. Now, I don't have to tell you how Jesus walked his talk, because during his ministry, he was the target of some of the most vile, violent, venomous anger known to mankind. And he turned around every direction whenever he went anywhere. Every time he was made fun of, he was ridiculed, he was demeaned, he was devalued, he was plotted against. And every time I read about the crucifixion story, I just start to shake my head in amazement at what he went through, how he responded, what Jesus did to when the Roman soldiers were just with a hammer and nail just pounding it into his hands, and then the whole crowd is crying for his blood. And then he just says to all of them, Father, forgive them. They don't even know what they're doing. And Peter, one of his closest friends, he wrote this about Jesus in 1 Peter 2:23. He did not retaliate when he was insulted, nor threaten revenge when he suffered. He left his case in the hands of God, who always judges fairly. I'm like, wow. What a difference that would make if we could do that. If I could do that better. If we just kind of left our case in the hands of God, because God always judges fairly. But I don't want God to do that, honestly, sometimes. I want to retaliate. I want to know there's payback. I want a little bit of revenge. I'm probably the only one in this room. I will be the scapegoat. But it's never really our right to do that. And I've discovered, and I am discovering, and I'm sure you have too, that never once have I felt better when I've gotten revenge. It just fuels the hurt and the anger and the pain and the rage, which is why Romans 12:1 and 2 piggybacks on the words of Jesus and tells us that when we respond to difficult people, we should respond differently than they expected us to. It begins, here's what I want you to do. God helping you, as you're listening to the loving voice of God, take your everyday, ordinary life, your sleeping, eating, going to work, and walking around life, and place it before God as an offering. This is what I want you to do as you respond to my voice and my heart, saying, God, I want you to renew my mind because you're the only one who is ever going to transform me. And I want my life to be a living sacrifice. God, transform me from the inside out. Transform me so I can become the best version of myself that you have created me to be, where I look more and more like the image of Jesus. And then the following verse starts to talk about how that transformation actually starts to play out. So I'm just jumping to verse 17 onward. This is so marked up in my Bible. It's underlined, highlighted, bracketed, starred. This is it right here. When someone does something bad to you, do not pay him back with something bad. Try not to do what all men know. Try to do what all men know is right and good. Never pay back evil with more evil. Do things in such a way that everyone can see you're honorable. Dear friends, never take revenge. Leave that to the righteous anger of God. For the scriptures say, I will take revenge. I will pay them back, says the Lord. Instead, if your enemies are hungry, feed them. If they're thirsty, give them something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals of shame on their heads. Don't let evil conquer you, but conquer evil by doing good. Sometimes when you do it the way that God wants you, you're like, that actually worked. I don't know if that's ever happened to you. Years ago, I was doing this really long distance hike. And there was this guy named Sidewinder who was just rude. He was mean to me. And every time I would come around, and he and his wife were this super hiking couple, every time I got around him or I was in a group, he would kind of target me to say some of the meanest things, and he would just insult me. He would always put me down, and he always did it in front of others. He's always getting people to laugh at it. And it was like he was coming at me on purpose. I did not like the guy. I barely knew him. I didn't know what I'd ever done to offend him, so I just kind of shut my mouth when I was around him. I did anything I could to avoid being alone with him. This one day we were in a hostel, and Sidewinder was sitting in the kitchen, and he was icing his knees, and he had his boots off, and his feet were just these bloody mess of blisters. He was just, he was just in a lot of pain. And he just had his head down, and he was at the table there, and I was like, crap. I want to make my dinner. He's in the kitchen. I don't know how long he's going to be there. So I went in and I started making dinner. I'm like, all right, buddy, do you need any dinner? Is there anything you need? Because I'm making dinner. I just thought I'd offer him. And then he's at the table. So I just sat down at the table, and I didn't say a word other than I just said, dude, I just see that you're in pain. I'm just sorry, because those blisters suck. Because I know that pain, because my feet were bloody too. And I told him, I just kind of summoned the courage up. I don't know what I've done to offend you. I'd love to know so that maybe I can make things right. I'm willing to apologize, but I don't know what I've done to make you so mad at me. And I just left it there. He didn't say a word. He took the food I made him. He got up and he left. I could hear him cursing under his breath as he walked away. I'm like, well, I did what I could. It's not going to be worse. This other hiker who was in the room saw it, and he's like, dude, you should have just dumped the food right in his lap. Me being a social guy, I was one of the last people to go to bed. I wasn't in any hurry to fall asleep. If there's people around, I'll give up sleep to be around people. Everyone finally left. I was the last guy. I was just getting my stuff. I was gathering it up. I was going to head to my bed. And in walks Sidewinder. Oh, if I just left 30 seconds earlier. I was like, all right, I don't want to just bail on him and look like I'm rejecting him. So I just sat there a minute. I'm like, what's going to happen? He sits down at a chair nearby, and I thought, oh, here it goes. Here's where he's going to just blast me again. And he told me, I've been sitting outside working through this. He said, the truth is, you haven't done anything wrong. My wife and I were struggling in our marriage, and every time she's around you, she laughs more and she smiles more, and I just get so jealous because she and I are just not enjoying each other. I thought this hike would help our marriage, and it's not. It seems to be driving a wedge in it, and I just have this jealousy that just makes me so angry. There's nothing you are doing wrong. And I'm just sorry, and I just want to apologize to you. The next day, they got up earlier than I did. They ate breakfast, got on the trail. I never saw them again. They were hiking faster. They put on bigger miles, and I could read these little trail journals. Every time you get to these shelters, a lot of times people leave notes, and so I was able to get there because they were ahead of me, and I'd read these journals. And you could just still see he's bloody, his knees are bad, just for the next, it was honestly about another 1,500 miles, because it was even before I met my wife, and over 1,500 miles of just reading through pain. And many years later, I was able to connect just a little bit with them. They ended up moving to Ashland, Oregon, where she was a hairdresser and he was a computer programmer, and they were still married. And I was like, well, there's that. We didn't really continue on the relationship, anything beyond that. But I was thinking, that night after I went to bed, I was laying there. I just remember going, man, the Bible worked. If your enemy is hungry, you feed them. Respond the way that is different than what they expect. And in doing this, you're going to heap burning coals on his head. Because he was just outside sitting for a couple hours, though. He was just out there going, I embarrass myself in front of these people, and I need to make this right with Wadi, because that was my name, Wadi. Like a deep ravine in a valley of Israel. It's a Wadi, W-A-D-I. And you're like, man, that's cool when the Bible works. And sometimes that happens. And then you also know, because we're not dumb, that sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes when you react and you kill someone with kindness, or sometimes when you had the courage to communicate and understand and trying to figure out and reach out to them, sometimes it still blows up in your face. Some angry people are going to deny that they even have a problem. And for some people, because of their supreme narcissism, they're going to say that it's you who has a problem, that you are everything, and they're just going to get nastier and nastier and nastier, and that is something you have to live with. And in that case, I think God would tell you to escape that situation. You need to get away from that person. In the Old Testament, David, when he was a young man, he was working closely with an out-of-control, rage-filled king named Saul, who was deeply disturbed, and he was blinded by jealousy, and sometimes he would throw things at David, really sharp things, and David finally concluded he needed to escape because he realized that being the goalie for a javelin team did not seem to be a healthy future. 1 Samuel 19:9, as David played his harp, Saul hurled his spear at David, and that's a tough music critic, worse than any Simon Cowell. But David dodged out of the way, and leaving the spear stuck in the wall, which were made out of stone, he fled and escaped into the night. Then Saul sent troops to watch David's house, and they were told to kill David when he came out the next morning. But Michal, David's wife, warned him, if you don't escape tonight, you'll be dead by morning. So she helped him climb out through a window, and he fled and escaped. In some situations, the wisest, most biblical thing that you can do when you deal with someone who's got anger issues, who is destroying your life, is to remove yourself from their presence. David had to escape from Saul because his life depended on it. I have known people who have been in physically abusive situations and marriages, and I have told them, you need to get out. It would be the stupidest thing for me to tell them that they need to stay in it because they can't get divorced. That had nothing to do with it. God has a heart, and his heart in the Bible, in Malachi 2:20, God says in one verse, God says, I hate divorce and I hate a man who clothes himself in anger. In the same breath, I hate the rage, I hate the damage. I hate damage that divorce can do, but I hate also the damage that anger can do. I hate them both. And I'm not about to pit one against the other and say you can't ever get divorced, because I've had to help women mostly escape abusive, physical, emotionally damaging husbands. Sometimes we don't need to learn how to deal with a difficult person in our lives. You just need to leave. And I would say that those situations have been very extreme and rare, but they have happened. Our kids, our youth, they need to hear that if they're ever in a physically abusive or sexually abusive situation, they don't have to learn how to deal with that difficult person. You have to tell them what is going on and to get out of that situation. We are not created to be punching bags. That is not God's best version. We are treasured children of God, of the Most High, and Jesus shed his blood on the cross to communicate to you and me just how precious every single one of us is. And I am convinced that if you have tried your best to understand kind of the steady flow of toxic emotions that are coming out of that angry person, and if you have attempted to sit down and work through it on multiple occasions, at a certain point in time, God expects you to do exactly what David did with a rage-filled Saul, where you just say, okay, I'm out of here. This is killing me. I can't live like this. I can't work here. I can't worship here. And unless the dynamics of this relationship change, I have to leave. And if it does, count me in. If it doesn't, then count me out. And I know what I'm talking about. Because what's your alternative? Because sometimes, because of sin, the only way for people to be restored to a life of wholeness is to escape from that angry person who insists on wrecking people's lives. Sometimes it is the only wake-up call for that angry person so that they can get their life managed and back under control so they don't continue to damage others. Now, usually a person would remove themselves temporarily if they're really serious about changing the dynamics of the relationship. And if that doesn't solve it, then you need to maybe be gone for a longer period of time, presumably, possibly permanently. And I would work with the guidance of a Christian counselor through the entire process, but always depending on God for the courage and protection and provision for your needs. And since wisdom really does bring peace, the only way to find peace is to depend upon God's wisdom and for the next great step. Now, as I've been working through this stuff, I've been thinking a bunch over the last few weeks, and I just keep thinking, what would happen if we all just started to get a better handle on our own anger? What if we all got serious about it? What if we got a handle on our reactions, on our mouth or on our bodies, our language, our prideful, selfish, intimidating, powerful ways? What if we all stopped running to revenge and we started going a different direction? What if we stopped running after rage and started to run after this other direction, this other path? Everything in us, relationships, would start to change. Homes would change. They would start to become safe places that they're meant to be. Friendships would be restored, marriages would be saved, families would get along, churches would thrive. I love what it says in 1 Peter 3:8-12. It says, be agreeable, be sympathetic, be loving, be compassionate, be humble. That goes for all of you. No exceptions, no retaliation, no sharp-tongued sarcasm. Instead, I love this, bless. That's your job, to bless. You'll be a blessing and also get a blessing. Whoever wants to embrace life and see the day fill up with good, here's what you do. Say nothing evil or hurtful. Snub evil and cultivate good. Run after peace for all you're worth. And what if we did that together? Not just individually, but together. What if we started to apply that? And we've said it several times over the last 2 weeks. Anger is a second emotion, because experts will tell you that there are three main things that cause us to bolt to anger, and that could either be hurt that you've experienced, it could be frustration, or fear. And as we wrap this up, Jesus is wanting to deal with those three deep issues in our lives, because he wants to heal the hurt that we have. And he wants to do it with his love. And you may have been abused or neglected or rejected or unwanted in your life. But you have hurt that you're still carrying with you, and you know that hurt people often hurt people. I just want to tell you, Jesus Christ wants to replace your heart with his healing love, with his unfailing love. And when you stop hurting, you will stop hurting others. You may not even know you're hurting others. And you'll be able to start loving others, because that's what it is that you're being filled up with. And God wants to give you his peace. Jesus says, my peace I give to you. It's the kind of peace that transcends all understanding of mankind. It's the kind of peace that right in the middle of your life, in the middle of the chaos, in the middle of the storm, you still know that God is in charge. And that calm and that serenity is what is guiding you. That peace, it is real, and it's amazingly available to every single one of us, every single day, every moment. And if it is the fear that is making you jump to anger, you need to know that Jesus wants to overcome your fear by his power. When you start to realize how loved you are by God, because then you start to find your insecurity level going down and your self-worth rising up higher. And when you know that the God of the universe really does have your back, and he doesn't just have your back, he's got your front, he's got your sides, he's got your top and below, he's all around you with his power and love. When you grasp that you're loved so deeply by a loving God that is so high and wide and long and strong, and you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that the God of creation, the God of the universe is for you and your life and wants the best for you and wants to create and craft you and love you and embrace you, even in the midst of your junk as you fall down, but you're falling forward, we're falling towards God, that starts to enable you to walk with confidence and calm. And that starts to change every relationship and every dynamic that we have in our lives. And that's what Jesus is wanting to do with every single one of us, every single day of our lives. And He will do it. He will do it if you let Him. If we let Him. He will heal your hurt with His love, and He will replace your frustration with His peace, and He will overcome your fear with His power. And then you finally can say, "It is well with my soul." And when was the last time you could say that? And wouldn't that be an amazing thing? Because that's a gift. And maybe then you can walk with others to do the same thing. And there is nothing more exciting than that. I'm going to pray, close us out. God, give us the courage to lean into this journey of growth with You. Help us to be honest about our hurts and our fears and our frustrations, where we just get real and honest about this stuff in our hearts. Help us more and more and more to be real and honest about what is going on inside of us, the hurts and the fears and the frustrations, so we can allow You to do a deep healing work and a transformation inside of us. And give us the boldness and the courage to those that we have in our lives that we're scared of confronting, where we can say, if I die, well, this is where I die. But I've got to lean into this. And then, God, I ask that You go before us, in front of us, as we lean into those hard conversations, that You would bring Your love and mercy and transformation to the lives of those around us, because they are wounded, damaged, hurting people. And give us the courage and the boldness to have, even allow empathy and compassion to grow in us for others. So, Father, fill us today.
Sometimes I fall to my knees and pray. Come, Jesus, come. Let today be the day. And sometimes I feel like I'm gonna break, but I'm holding on to a hope that won't fade. And come, Jesus, come.